Hi you guys, and welcome to my channel. So this is the last day of my Christmas projects, and I'm going to be sharing with you a quilt I made using the Scandi Christmas line, and it is such a beautiful line. So here is the quilt. I had so much fun making it. The back of it is also using Scandi fabric, and I pieced the backing together so that the village is like a reflection on either side. I love how it turned out. I quilted it with just a wavy line, and it made it like stressless doing it that way. I just started at one of the candies, and I kind of followed along the candy and swirled back and forth. I didn't make them the same distance. I just sewed following close or moving around, and it made it so stressless doing it that way, because I wasn't trying to make it perfect, and I really think it turned out good. I like the quilting on it. So yeah. So I am going to walk you through how I made it. There's a PDF on my blog that I'll link in the description to get the template to make the circle here, and I will put fabric information on there. It's just honestly a guesstimate because I made this very scrappy, but I'll do my best on getting that correct information to you. But yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in to show you how to make this. It is really easy because, you know, all the blocks are the same. So you can add as many or as few as you want to make it as big or as small as you want. And like I said, all the information will be in the description of this video and on my blog. So I hope you enjoy watching me make this quilt, and please let me know in the comments if you intend to make it too. Okay, so let's get started on this candy quilt. Okay, so first you'll want to get your template, and that will be available on my blog as a free download. It's essentially a drunkard's path pattern, and the first printout you'll get will kind of show you as a guide of the different pieces you'll have for this quilt. Part of the drunkard's path, please note, is going to get taped together. So this main block with the curve, I designed to be able to fit on a layer cake if you want. I might pull out some of these to use for that, but I won't be using all of them because I have some of these other colors that I think are going to work best with this quilt that I am going to be making. So I'll save a bunch of these for my other projects. So you'll want some yardage, and you'll want some backing fabric, of course. I'm using the Scandi prints because I just think it's absolutely gorgeous. I am definitely using it a lot for projects this Christmas. I just think it's such classic Christmas colors, and it's just beautiful. Okay, so what we're going to do first is cut out the templates and kind of talk about how we'll be using those. So let's work on that. Okay, so I have all my template pieces cut out. Now, just to help you make sure that you get this lined up properly, I think it's easiest to leave the bigger piece with the little extra tab on, and then I trim this one right at that light gray line. Because essentially, to get this to be the proper size, you want those gray lines to line up. Then everything comes together nicely. And then I just use some tape to hold it in place. And then I tape the front and the back. My tape's a little bit long, so what I do is just wrap it around to the other side. Or you can, you know, trim it off flush. All right, so now what we're going to do is you want to note that these template pieces are in a specific order because these like pie wedges are not all the same size. So I wanted it to be kind of fun and whimsical, and whenever I think of those mint candies that you always see out at Christmas, the little circle ones, they aren't even. They're kind of just like, you know, kind of swirls of white and red. So on your template, it shows where each pie wedge goes. So C, D, E, and then B. So if you want to do kind of the traditional white and red alternating on the candy, you'll want the B to be red, the C white, D red, E white. So writing it on kind of helps me know which template I want to be cutting what color of fabric so that the pattern is correct. And then for each of these, I'm going to be cutting out 36. So I'll need 36 cuts of each, and then I'll need 36 cuts of the A. And for this one, I'm going to be mostly doing like all shades of gray. So that is what we're going to be working on. We're going to be picking out our fabrics that we're going to be using. I'm going to starch them and press them, and then start cutting 36 of each template. Okay, so I have all of my fabric prepped. These are 36 squares of fabrics that are more gray for the A template. Show that a little bit better. So there is a variety here. It's gonna kind of be a more scrappy looking quilt. I have this lovely yardage that I cut down to 10-inch squares just to make it easier. That was kind of ombre. So there's different hues of gray here. And then I have some of my grays from the layer cake. This one with stars and gold. This one with like kind of the floral swirls with little stars in them. The reindeer. And then I have some really light ones here with the hills and houses and snowflakes, and this beautiful, beautiful fabric here that has the houses. This is actually from the backing fabric that I'm going to use. I measured it out and cut it down to use some to get some more darker grays in the mix. So I have a nice variety there for the A template. And then here are the whites that I'm going to use. Right now, all of it is from the layer cake. I think I'm going to have to cut 1 or 2 more pieces to get a few more of the triangles, because I only have 10 right here. So I have the trees and the stars. So, oh, and then I have this snowflakes. It does have a little bit of red in it, but I think it'll be okay. So that is what I'm using. I have some more trees if I need some more white. And then I have a lot more red here. So I should have a nice variety. I have some of this fabric with the swirls and stars, some of the trees, some reindeer, and some stars. So I think it'll be a really lovely quilt when I get this all set up. So I'm gonna start cutting these. I'll show you some of the cutting, and then I'll show you how I'm going to piece this all together. Okay, so now we are going to start cutting. And I'm going to start with my pattern piece B. And what I did was cut out that pattern piece on a piece of waxed paper. and then, or freezer paper. So the freezer paper has a side that kind of gets sticky. So when you iron it, so I can iron it onto here and it'll help me make sure that I'm not shifting the template as I cut. I have a few layers here, and so I'm just gonna get my pattern piece B cut out and keep cutting it out until I get 36 cut pieces of this pattern. So I like to use a ruler as much as I can to get as much cut as I can, because then I know it's likely going to be very straight lines. And then when I can't, you know, I'll just do what I can to get it as close as I can to the template. So this is kind of a smaller rotary blade, so I can curve a little. Let's see. I didn't get through all of them here. So I would say, depending on if you have a new blade in your rotary cutter, you can probably cut through 4 layers pretty easily. I think I put 5 here. I probably shouldn't have done that, but usually I can get through 4 pretty easy. Okay, so I have, how many did I put? 1, 2, 5. So then that just peels off. You don't even see a residue behind. So one thing I did take note of is the directional fabric. You know, for this one, it may not be too important because they're all going to be spinning anyway. So that's kind of just up to you. So I have 5 done, and I'm going to iron my my template back on here so that I can get some more cut until I get 36 done. And I'm going to do that with the white fabric as well. And then my other template for the gray fabrics, I'll probably just do those one at a time because I'm going to line up the edge of it with each square. It'll take longer, but I don't want to be off on the square. I'm just mainly worried about this curve here, so I'll probably just put some pins in and really focus on cutting the curve really well. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to iron this back on and keep cutting. Okay, so now that I have everything cut, I have 36 of each template piece cut. I am going to start sewing finally. So I'm going to refer back to the little diagram that we're going to be sewing C and D kind of pie pieces together and E and B pie pieces together. So what that's going to look like for me is I'm going to put right sides together and sew a 1/4 inch seam along here. So line up as best as I can, sew a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm just going to chain piece all of my C and D pieces together first. And what I'm going to do, because I'm chain piecing them, I don't want them to get mixed up. I'm going to start with a leader as I sew that I have a CD written on. So I'll start sewing along here and then just start going through my C and D pieces, just pairing them together. Okay? And once I get finished with all of those, I'll do the same with my E and B pieces. So I'll put a random 2 together, E and B, and start a leader that says EB pinned to it, so I know to keep them all together. Once I get all my pairs sewn of each, I will just sew my CD pair to my EB pair and chain piece all those, and then I'll have my little half moon, my half, or well, actually it's a quarter circle all ready and sewn to attach to my A template that's there in the background. So I will show some of that sewing so you can kind of see it working as well, but I just wanted to really explain what I would be doing next.
Oh, come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh, come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. God of God, light of light, lo, he abhors not the virgin's womb. Very God begotten, not created. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Yea, Lord, we greet thee, born this happy morning, Jesus to thee.
Okay, so now that we have all 4 sections sewn together, we are going to start attaching them to the background. So to do that, when you're first looking at it, it looks like the fan portion that's going to be the candy is a little too big for the background. Trust me, it'll work, and it just takes a little bit of patience. Okay, maybe a lot of patience. But you see, I folded this, and I pressed right there so I can kind of see where the middle of the fan is. And then I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to line up the stitches with that pressed section. And after I get my pin in there, I'm going to gather this and see how I'm lining up the side of the fan with the block. I'm not going to be sewing there, but this will really help if you do this extra step, keep everything nice and straight for you. So I put a pin in there, and then I put a pin right along the edge where I'm going to be sewing. So now that I got that pinned, I'm going to just ever so carefully kind of line this up and add pins all along there. Now it's going to feel like you're getting a lot of gathered fabric, and you kind of are, but when you sew, you're not going to see all that gathered fabric. It's not going to bunch up as long as you took the time to really try to even it all out. So, I mean, I really placed like a million pins through here. I'm not even exaggerating. The more you place, the more you're going to be able to keep everything all even. Okay, so I'm gonna do this and pin as much as I feel like I need all the way to that first middle pin I did. And then I'm going to come to this side and do that same thing. I'm gonna kind of finagle this over, get the edge of the fan lined up with that kind of shorter edge of my background. Then once I get that side lined up, I'm gonna come over and put a pin on that corner on the curved area where I'm going to be sewing. So like I said, it's going to seem like there's quite a bit of gathered fabric, but once we get that 1/4 inch seam across there, it's going to really even out as long as we pinned really well. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is do the same thing I did with this one for all of the rest of these. Okay, now something that I do want to take the time to point out is that some of the fabric I'm using, and maybe some of the fabric that you're going to be using, are directional fabrics. So if you wanted to, you could really take the time and make sure you're matching up your directional fabric. You see how the bottom of the tree is facing towards the center of the candy swirl circle, the peppermint circle. You could kind of line them up so that you have your background up right here and it brings into all of the trees. Or you could just not worry about it, and you see my trees are kind of upside down here, and you know, just keep it scrappy and not worry about it. It's just however you feel on it, but if you really want to pay attention to that, this would be the time to do that.
O come, all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. God of God, light of light, lo, he abhors not the virgin's womb.
Okay, so now that I have all of my blocks sewn, I am just laying them out and going to kind of try to play around with the layout a bit until I get really happy with how it looks. So after I'm happy with the layout, I will just start sewing all of my blocks together in groups of 4 so that I can keep everything together after I'm happy with the layout. And then just keep piecing the whole top together. Then I will baste it and quilt the way I feel. I'm not sure how I'm going to quilt it yet. I think I'm going to kind of do wavy lines instead of straight lines because I almost always straight line quilt if I'm doing it myself. So I might try and do a little bit something different, but we'll see. I'll definitely show you guys what I decide to do for the quilting.